Good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live. I'm Andrea Gomez.
Orlando Sanchez here.
Good morning.
Buenos días.
¿Cómo has estado?
Muy bien, gracias.
It's good to have you back.
It's great to have rain.
I know, that's true.
It's good for your skin.
It's good for my skin and it's good for my grass. It was dying.
Yeah, it's been pretty dry.
I know, it's very, very dry, but the temperature is getting better and raining. I know it's been flooding some areas, but
I think most Houstonians, most Texans are done with the summer of 2023.
Absolutely.
Yep. A lot of things going on in the political world.
I know that's your expertise, so I'll let you talk about it.
No, I mean,
what has been going on the last?
Well, we'll get into it, but
the last few
we
days.
averted a government, as they call it, shutdown. As we all know, the government really doesn't shut down. It's just people's pay is deferred until the government comes back funded. But and then it cost the Speaker of the House his position. And of course, we all know that there were multiple elections for the Speaker of the House because they didn't feel that California's U.S. Congressman McCarthy was sufficiently conservative enough. So eventually it took several rounds, but they finally elected him with a very slim margin of the far right of the Republican caucus of the House. And that should have been the warning that he was going to be treading on very thin ice. And of course, U.S. Representative Gates out of Florida was upset that McCarthy negotiated with the Democrats for a stopgap 45-day funding of the federal government, and that cost him his speakership last night.
But
well, we're going to talk about that.
I know, but this happened also in 2018.
Well, the speaker didn't lose a position.
No. I'm talking about the government shutdown. How do we go to this point again?
Well, it's a focus by conservative, fiscally conservative members of the U.S. Congress that are concerned about the debt and the deficit. We operate annually on a deficit. We spend more money than we take in. Basically, Andrea, if your salary is just say $100,000 a year, but you're spending $120,000, you have a $20,000 deficit. Mm-hmm. How do you make that up? Usually you'll go to a bank and borrow money, or you'll get a second mortgage on your house. You're still borrowing money. And that's okay if you do it one time. But over many, many, many years, if you're borrowing, let's say, $20,000 every year to cover your expenditures, at the end of 5 years, now you have a $100,000 debt. Mm. And if you keep doing it, you have a debt that you cannot manage, that you will never probably pay off. And that's where we are today in America. We have crossed a $33 trillion debt because for decades we have been spending more money than we take in. And no one wants to have the conversation with America to say, we cannot sustain this. We may be living okay today, but our children and our grandchildren are going to be in very bad financial shape. The country is going to be in bad financial shape. So some members of Congress have decided that this is an issue that needs to be talked about. And rather than, Congress has typically said, here's a spending bill, and it's billions of dollars, but it may be funding for Ukraine. It may be funding for the Federal Aviation Administration. It may be funding for the Department of Defense. And what's happening is the conservatives are saying, we're not doing omnibus spending bills anymore, where we lump everything in and you either pass it or don't. And so they want to start looking at different spending items. And so that's where we are today. Some people are concerned. We are spending way in excess of our gross domestic product, our GDP, and that's very dangerous. We're doing potentially the same thing that they're prosecuting Donald Trump for. Donald Trump apparently, allegedly, and by the way, this case in New York is ridiculous because if you're going to bring a man to trial for estimating the assets of his real estate holdings, you're going to have to indict every real estate developer in the United States. I mean, it's a known
We know
fact.
this is a political show.
Most developers will inflate the value of their assets in hopes that they get a bigger loan from the bank. It's the responsibility of the bank to say, wait a minute, our appraisers say it's not worth that. So it's all political. But anyway, America and Congress and the president are doing the same thing that Donald Trump did in his private business. But go ahead.
So hopefully we will have a professor from University of St. Thomas later to talk about the topic. But for now, we're celebrating this month from September 15 till October 15 the Hispanic Heritage Month. Es el mes de la herencia hispana, cubano, colombiana,
Mexicanos, guatemaltecos, hondureños, peruanos,
todos los
argentinos,
latinoamericanos estamos
venezolanos.
celebrando el mes de la herencia hispana. Yo sé que tú te sabes un poco de la historia de cómo comenzó cuando nombraron, primero que era una semana y luego Ronald Reagan dijo que era un mes.
Sí.
Más o menos esa es la idea, ¿no?
Claro, Ronald Reagan declaró que iba a ser un mes entero para celebrar la comunidad hispana en los Estados Unidos y de vez en cuando lo hemos celebrado.
Bueno, lo seguimos celebrando y precisamente to celebrate the Hispanic Heritage Month, so we invited our dear friend, also friend from TLC Live and Texas Latino Conservative, el Brigadier General Joe Ramirez, the Texas A&M. He's the Vice President of Student Affairs in Texas A&M. By the way, my son is now a freshman in Texas A&M, and I need to introduce my son with the Brigadier Ramirez. I think it will be very important for my son to meet him.
Yeah, maybe the general will recruit him into the
Corps. Maybe you never know. Yeah, he's a very conservative boy, very disciplined, and I'm so proud of him. And he's his freshman year in Texas A&M, and he's so happy. I am so happy. He's coming home finally Sunday for the fall break. It's just couple of days.
General, I'll remind you, he only left about 3 weeks ago.
But you know how moms, especially Latina moms, talking about the Hispanic Heritage Month, that's very important. So to tell you a funny story, so I dropped him off at Texas A&M, and a week later, I couldn't take it anymore, and I went to visit him, and it was the worst nightmare I did. And he was telling me, don't go and bother the boy. And I went, and here we go. Yeah, he was like, Mom, come on, I just left a week ago.
General, no freshman wants their mom in and around the dorms the first weekend. I mean, how embarrassing is that?
I know.
Well, I lived that nightmare myself. I was the oldest.
Con una mamá latina.
Mama Latina, todo. And so when I left, my mother cried, and she would call me. And I was a freshman in the Corps, and I was going through a lot. And I would tell her, Mom, please don't call. It's tough enough, but to pick up the phone and hear you crying just makes it worse for me. But no, she continued to call me. And, ay, mijo, come home, mijo. All the time. I empathize with your son.
Latina moms would act like Texas A&M and College Station is as far away as Boston.
You're exactly right.
I always tell my kids, having a Latina mom, you guys are entitled of a compensation because we are so intense. It's too much, but, es parte de la herencia, ¿no?
Sí, claro que sí.
And that's the thing. One of the things that we talk about and celebrate during Hispanic Heritage Month is, one, we're proud to be Americans, all of us, regardless of where we came from. Andrea and I, as you know, General, are both immigrants, but we're proud Americans. We're proud patriots of this country. I mean, General, as you have, I've served in the military. And we want to make sure that this country is strong and that our children are patriotic and value the country, the Constitution, our form of government, our system of the economy, which is capitalism. We want to honor the rule of law in this country, and we want to raise our kids that way. But too often people forget the values of the Latino Hispanic community. We're about family. We're about faith. We're about country. We're about being patriots. We're about hard work and earning our own way. And that's one of the things that we continue to highlight is trying to, because I traveled the state, General, as you know, representing Texas Latino conservatives. And people ask me all the time, what's a Hispanic? It's like, well, we're like Americans. We're multiracial. We're multi-ethnic. We come from, we have different colors of skin, different eyes. We eat different foods, but we have one thing in common, and that's our language. But our values, more than anything else, unites the Hispanic community in this country.
I totally agree with you. And when I did my interview for KAG's television about Hispanic Heritage Month, one of the things I highlighted was that at an early age, my father taught me. My father was second generation American, and he was a military veteran, a former prisoner of war. My mother grew up on a farm here in Texas, quit school in the 8th grade to go work on the farm, but they were both proud Americans. And my father taught me at a young age, you have to love three things in your life. You have to love your God, you have to love your family, and you have to love your country. And he taught me that at an early age. And to this day, I mean, those words are tattooed on my arm. That's how important they are to me. And I
Yeah.
taught that to my children. And he also taught me that, love of country also means that when your country calls on you, you need to step up and serve. My father served for 22 years. I served for 31. Both of my sons served. And we are proud Americans that have served our nation in uniform and will do so again if necessary.
One of the interesting things that I discovered as a young man out of high school, I joined the U.S. Air Force. And, I joined the Air Force because at the time they had commercials that said, join the Air Force, see the world, right? They had bases all around the world. And I did. I wanted to travel the world. So I joined the Air Force and I got stationed at Lackland Air Force Base for boot camp. And then technical school was at Rantoul, Illinois. And then my duty station was Del Rio, Texas. So I really got to travel the world. But one of the things I noticed, General, stationed down along the Rio Grande River in Del Rio, Texas, is the patriotism of Tejanos, Mexican Americans that have lived in South Texas. And it didn't have to be Memorial Day, July the 4th, or any special holidays. Tejanos always flew the American flag on their lawns, and that's always struck me as very interesting, more so than driving through, neighborhoods here in Houston. Tejanos, Hispanics, Mexican Americans love the state, love the country. And in fact, you probably know this better than anything else. I think than anyone else, I should say. Disproportionately, Hispanics in Texas join the military at a large percentage of the population.
They do, and that's always been a source of pride for me. I mean, I grew up there in Houston, Magnolia Park, right there, Navigation Wayside. Those are my stomping grounds. But one of the iconic organizations there in my neighborhood was the American Legion. And my father was a member, and many of my family were members there. And that became kind of the hub of all social events there in the neighborhood. And the reason why it was such a big hub is because so many in that neighborhood, all Mexicanos, all, probably blue collar, low socioeconomic, many of them went on to serve our nation in uniform in all the services, and they still take great pride to this day. And that American Legion, again, became kind of the hub of a lot of that for our neighborhood. We took great pride in the fact that many of us served our nation in uniform. As a matter of fact, I've got a family reunion here in 2 weeks, and we're holding it right there at the American Legion. We're bringing together familia from all over the state, all over the nation, and we're coming back to that American Legion to celebrate our family reunion.
One of the as you know, these programs are not only aired live on Facebook and YouTube, but they also are recorded on YouTube. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can search Texas Latino Conservatives and click on the videos. If you search through there, you will see that we produced a video. Was it Memorial Day one year? But we highlighted the contribution of Mexican Americans. And it's a moving video, General, if you've never seen it. But we highlighted probably half a dozen Congressional Medal of Honor winners from Texas. And it's just an amazing video. Talk to us about the heroic service of Mexican Americans that have joined the U.S. military and fought for this country.
Yeah, it truly does make you proud to have been a service member of the United States military and to have seen the contributions of Latinos. And I'm Mexican American, but I serve with Latinos from all over. I mean, Cubanos, Puerto Ricanos, Nicaragua, El Salvador, they were from all over. But they proudly stepped up to serve. Many of them had only had a green card, and yet they still stepped up to serve our nation with great pride. And when you think about some of the iconic names, Macario Garcia, who earned the Medal of Honor in World War II, Roy Benavides, who earned the Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War. I mean, these are icons in our community, and these are men who stepped up at a time when our country needed them to do so. And these are men that came from very humble beginnings, like many of us grew up in very humble backgrounds, and yet rose to achieve incredible feats on the battlefield and represent all Latinos extremely well. And as a Latino who reached a pretty high level in the military, I always took with great pride serving alongside other Latinos that just wanted to do their part for their country.
You talk about the organizations that represent and veterans, but none stands out in my mind more than the GI Forum, and we've got to remember that. We've had some racial struggles in this country, and we're always moving in a better direction. We're trying to always make America better, more inclusive. But let's not forget that, it was a physician that served in the U.S. Army, saving thousands of lives in the Second World War. But when he got back home, he realized that Mexican American and Latino service members weren't getting their VA benefits. They weren't being respected by the community at large. And, the physician down in Corpus Christi started the GI Forum to represent and advocate for veterans. And, it always hasn't been easy. Is that correct?
That is true. That is true. And we've come a long way. We truly have come a long way. President Lyndon Johnson threw great support behind the GI Forum and ensuring that our Latino veterans were being taken care of when they came back from whatever conflict they were serving in. So it is an important undertaking for all of us to ensure that our veterans are taken care of. And for those of us of Hispanic background, I think it's very, very important that organizations like the GR Forum are out there advocating for us and ensuring that we're getting all that we're entitled to.
General, tell us about how A&M is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. How do you use in your experience, your expertise, and also being a Latino to celebrate and to help the freshmen students like my son, that is the first time that he's, first time for me, of course, because I have twins, and both of my kids, it's the first time they go to the college, and for them to adjust and Latino background and dealing with moms like me and moms like your mom, because you experience the same thing. So how do you guys are celebrating and also helping the freshmen Latino?
And I will also say before you answer that one of her children is a Texas trader. She's crossed the Red River, General.
Yeah, she's in Arkansas.
All right, nothing wrong with that. The main thing is she's going to college. I mean, that's
Absolutely
important, especially for our community. I'll tell you, there's a lot going on here on campus. As a matter of fact, I get a chance, as the Vice President for Student Affairs, I get a chance to meet with students regularly. And over the last couple of days, I have met with Hispanic students to talk about all the events that are ongoing on campus for Hispanic Heritage Month. It's a big deal here at Texas A&M University, as are all of our cultural heritage events throughout the school year. And so we work hard with the students to provide them the opportunity to celebrate in a way that showcases our culture to the entire community here at Texas A&M University. And so there's a lot going on here. They've already had events here in Rudder Plaza where they've showcased dancing and food and traditions that come with the Hispanic community. And what's unique, which was already mentioned, is the fact that some of the traditions are different based on where you're from. Someone from Colombia has traditions different from someone in Nicaragua, who's different from Mexico, different from Cuba. And we celebrate that here at Texas A&M and the cultural differences, but the fact that we are still, one people that are bound together by a common language. So a lot going on here. We've got more events planned. Next week, I'll be going out to Aggie Park here for a celebration that's going to take place in Aggie Park in the evening. I'm going to bring my wife We enjoy going to these events. For my wife, it's a real treat to get a chance to meet the students and find out where they're from and get a chance to talk to them. And of course, my wife wants to adopt all of them and bring them all home for a good dinner of arroz con pollo y frijoles.
Qué rico.
So
I'm going to tell my son that you invited me to that celebration, that it's not that I'm going to visit him. You just invited me.
Here we go again.
the invitation's there. Come on out and join us.
General, growing up, I remember that a lot of folks, America is changing. The demographics of America are changing. We've seen that in Texas, where for many, many years, after 1836, with the influx of a lot of people from the Tennessee and Kentucky after the Revolution, and then obviously in the 20th century emigrated to Texas. And the population was mostly Caucasian, and that's fine. I mean, descendants of Germans and Italians and Irish and, Western Europeans. But now in the 21st century, our population and our ethnic composition is changing. Nothing wrong with that. We've gone through that before. It was the end of the world when the Italians came to America, and they had pejoratives that were not very favorable to the community. And then when the Germans came in, and then after the Second World War, when a lot of the Jews that were persecuted by the Axis came to America, they were persecuted. America's always, for some reason, sort of been fearful of the immigrants that are coming in, and so. But it's really, when you think about it, it really makes our country stronger. We're the only place on the globe that anyone from any corner of the world can emigrate, integrate, assimilate, and become an American, a patriot, like all of us on this program. You're a descendant, your parents were, you're of Mexican descent, I'm Cuban, she's Colombian, but we're all patriotic Americans. I think it makes America stronger. And some people get wrapped around the axle and get concerned that we're celebrating African American Month or Week or whatever, or we're celebrating Hispanic heritage. I just think that highlights the strength of America. We're not afraid to be inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I totally
and by the
agree
way,
with
let
you.
me just say that I think that Texas A&M and Chancellor Sharp and all of you, the entire leadership, has done a really great job of going out and recruiting diverse communities in Texas. I know a lot of conservatives may hate that word diverse and diversity, and I don't like to use it because, General, I never refer to myself, as by ethnicity or by race or by sex. Or I always consider myself an American, a veteran, Tejano, but, I rarely say, I'm a Hispanic. But you can't deny that we're all of Hispanic descent. But the university has done a fantastic job. How have you guys been so successful in diversifying the student body population at Texas A&M?
Yeah, we've really reached out, made a concerted effort to reach out, and this goes back to even when Bob Gates was the president of Texas A&M University and realized that for us to recruit, for example, more Hispanic students at Texas A&M, we need to outreach. We needed to put people out there in the communities to be able to recruit and talk about Texas A&M and the opportunities available here. And we've continued to do that. There's a huge recruiting effort out there now to recruit underrepresented populations to come to Texas A&M and become students here, and it's paid off. I mean, Texas A&M is now a Hispanic serving institution, which means that 25% of our student body or more is now Latino, and that's a huge achievement. When I came to Texas A&M in the mid to late 70s, we made up about 2% of the student population. Today, we're 25% of the student population, and the efforts to continue to grow that continue every year. So Texas A&M has truly made a concerted effort to get out there and recruit. We've got a lot of work to do. We realize that. We know we're not where we want to be, but we still continue to try to move the needle in recruiting underrepresented populations at Texas A&M University because we firmly believe we have a lot to offer young men and women here at Texas A&M, and they'll get a great education but a great experience along the way as well.
Well, General, we want to thank you for your service to our country. We want to thank you for your service to the state of Texas, and now we want to congratulate you for your leadership position now at Texas A&M University. And as always, you have an open invitation to come to the program and share any news about Texas A&M. But now we're going to go just down the street here and visit a little bit with a professor from the University of St. Thomas about local politics. So we thank you. I know Andrea will be knocking at your door because she'll probably be up there every weekend hounding her son.
I'm just gonna say that you invited me all the time, but I want to introduce you to my son for sure.
I look forward to meeting him, and you're welcome on campus anytime. If you ever come this way, let me know. Would love to take you to lunch and talk about all the great things that are going on here at Texas A&M.
I will
Thank you,
text
General.
you. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you. God bless.
You too.
Thank you. Well, we have two guests. One is the professor, Dr. Chris Wolfe from University of St. Thomas. He's also a friend of the TLC family, and he's going to talk about politics. Before we go with him, I want to go 5 minutes with a Hispanic that is from Peru. He is exactly what you were describing, that this is the land of opportunities, the best country in the world, and only in this country you can do whatever you want and make your dreams come true. Well, he is Ricardo Diaz de la Vega, and also he is the CEO of Dreams Animation and Founders. He not only made his dreams come true, but he calls his company Dreams.
Awesome.
And he is from Peru, and he is recently, like 2 years ago, he was living in New York. And he left New York, he ran away from New York, and now he is in Houston, in Texas, and he is moving part of his company here to Texas. And we want to hear your story because we are in the Hispanic Heritage Month, and you are a perfectly example of when you come to this country and you make your dreams come true, porque todos venimos con una mochila llena de sueños y en este país las podemos lograr.
But before he answers, I have one question for you. Have you bought your pair of boots yet?
Oh, not yet.
Not
But I
yet.
got the
You
hat.
need, well,
That's
you
a good
need
thing
to.
I have. It's the most representative for me here in Texas.
Well, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations for TLC. It's a phenomenal show that you guys are presenting. Actually, I love the platform. I was looking at your channel a few days ago, and there are great conversations. You are presenting a plateau of multiple ideas that allow us as Hispanics to present also our voice, and that's very powerful what you guys are doing for Texas and for the nation.
Ricardo, tell us a little bit about your background and how did you ended up in New York, started a company, and why you decide to leave New York and come to Texas.
Well, I came to the United States when I was 24 years old. I came with a bunch of dreams, probably a few extra dollars to buy my first laptop. It was a Compaq brand, and that's how I started an idea that I had at the time to create advertising agency, marketing agency, and everything started from a little basement in Queens, New York. I think perseverance is the main recipe that we have as immigrants, and that gave me the boost, also the desire and ganas behind. And after a few years, I was able to convert that little idea at the moment into an award-winning company serving hundreds and hundreds of business owners in different states. Every year, we are providing web development and different type of marketing strategies, and that's how all started. We are continuing our work. There is a higher level of commitment behind because there is a huge need right now in the country. And this is something that not even the government is assisting. When you look at the statistics and you understand that we as United States of America, we don't even have 100% representation of the digital market with our companies. Only 40% of the companies in America, they have a website. That's a problem. Small businesses, they are in a worse position. Now, with Dreams Animation, we are trying to solve the problem. We are trying to adequate our services also by presenting an affordable solution, but also a solution that works. This is not like do-it-yourself website where I charge you $129 or $200 a month, like other companies they do, and okay, figure it out, try to do it on your own. No, there is a huge commitment here That's why we have the best professionals in the market, building the website for you and guaranteeing that somehow you're going to get some level of results, but also is trying to solve an issue that is happening right now.
You know, there was a recent article that talked about the growing Hispanic entrepreneurship and the spending power of the Hispanic population in the United States. They say that the spending power of Hispanics in the United States is larger than the economy of India.
Wow.
That's substantial.
That's huge.
That's
That's huge.
incredible. It's incredible. I think after the pandemic, our spending power it grew tremendously. Also, no, around 2019, the statistics says that we were contributing with around $1.7 trillion per year. Probably we already hit the $2 trillion. And that's not a coincidence. That's not by a chance. It's because there is hard work behind. We need to understand and recognize that we are a very powerful force in the country. We are contributing with the growth, economically speaking. And it's very important to also see at the numbers. Today, we represent 20% of the population in the entire country. Are you kidding me? And you're not putting attention to develop more essential tools to a community that is presenting to you that we have the desire to grow businesses, to create more job opportunities. And that's something that we really need to address. That's why I love your platform, because that gives us the chance in different type of tones and voices to present this kind of realities. So the representatives that we are going to elect in the future, they need to address these points, because at the end of the day, this is not about, you mentioned something before when you were interviewing our Brigadier General, and you mentioned about diversity. You don't like to use the word, and I loved when you say that, because diversity for me is the D word. Just like, the N word cannot be pronounced. Okay, don't say the D word to me, because you know what? I don't want to just be a field seat in the room. I want you to create a higher level of awareness. So talk to me about other level of representation. And it's not just about being in the room where you are giving me the chance just because the color that you see on me, or because the ethnicity that represents me. It's also because you understand what my culture means to you and how it's contributing in the environment. And that is a different type of magic that is going to happen. And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen immediately. But that's something that also political parties and different type of organizations, corporate America, the boards around the corporate America, they need to understand, because diversity is not enough. It's just a cliche word. It's completely overrated. And we need to address this in a different type of manner.
Wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I'm in Houston, Texas. Where do you live, Ricardo? Are you in Houston?
He lives in Houston, and I want to hear your story, that why you left New York.
Yeah, but let me just, to your point, I mean, you're absolutely correct. I may be in trouble here, by some folks, but let me just say, I've been in politics for 30 years. I've watched the Greater Houston Partnership, which is supposed to be the big chamber of commerce of Houston, right? And you look at the board of directors of the top 100 companies that make up the Greater Houston Partnership. You don't see Hispanics on the board of directors. So as you said, measure us by the strength of our intellect and our economic contributions, not by our ethnicity. Don't give us one seat on the board of a 42-member board of directors because you want to fill a spot. Give it to us because we're qualified, we're entrepreneurial, we're contributing to the economy. And that irks me to this day. And so, hopefully that'll change in Texas. In Houston, we're half the population in the city of Houston, but we're not represented in the corporate boardroom.
Yes, that's related with inclusivity, and it's not just about you filling up a gap that you feel like, oh my God, the demographic is changing and shifting, so I need to sit 2 black guys, 3 Latinos, 2 Asian here, and also 5 women. No, that's not the solution. It's about you understanding that you are living in a majority-minority country where there are different type of perspective, and you are accepting that all those voices, they need to be part of the conversation. That's inclusivity. That's why diversity is not going to take us nowhere. Right now, we're practicing diversity, and we have the worst policies ever.
So we don't have much time, Ricardo. I wanted you finalize your participation in the segment, telling us why you ran away from New York and how did you contributing to Texas conservative as a Latino.
For the same reason Donald Trump wants to run away from New York.
Well, it was a big coincidence. I love New York. I mean, when I first came to United States, I went straight to New York. I think a lot of people, they were like, why you took that decision? Because that's a very competitive environment. And I think God wanted to be that way. But I left New York because I had a sense of responsibility with my family. I protect the values of my home. I'm married. I have 3 children. I noticed the shift in terms of the quality of education inside public schools. I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want that for my wife to be in an environment. When pandemic hit, New York stopped for a few days, and then I realized, okay, this is going nowhere. Because I remember when I first came, I faced a storm. The storm stopped the subways for a week. And at that time, I was a very aware young man that I was reading the news. I was trying to learn English, and I was understanding that they were raising the taxes and things like that. And that happened only for 1 week. Now, imagine what was going to happen when I was living already 3 months when the city was stopped. So I say to my wife, you know what? There explore other options. At the end, we decided to come between Florida and Texas. We ended deciding Texas. I think I persuaded her in that way, and we ended coming here. It was the best decision ever, and we're very blessed today.
All right, now we're gonna have to take you out and get you a pair of boots.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and I gotta invite you to a Texas honky tonk, okay?
Okay. I accept the
I
invitation.
can't
This
get
is
her
public,
to a
huh?
I can't get her to a honky tonk. Maybe you
I'll
can
go.
invite her.
Maybe if you go, I'll go.
Okay. Done deal. Yeah. That's it.
Ricardo, gracias por tu participación, gracias por la contribución, gracias por conservar los valores de la familia y por venir a Texas a engrandecer eso, a hacerlo tan maravilloso, porque de verdad que eso es lo que nos falta, más latinos como tú que lleguen aquí a Texas y sigan fomentando los valores de la familia y los valores conservadores de los latinos.
Bienvenido.
Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Dios los bendiga.
Igualmente.
Now, the political part.
The best part.
The best part.
That you think is boring.
No, I'm not. It's fascinating.
Yeah, we went to dinner last night, and she says that my political diatribes are boring.
No, well, you're boring, but Dr. Chris Wolfe is
boring.
not.
All right, let's bring Dr. Wolfe in.
Good to be with you guys.
Dr. Wolfe, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy and you always dedicate time to TLC Live to inform us, to help us to navigate this craziness that is going on in politics in this country.
Yeah, WTH, what's going on in Washington, D.C., Professor?
Try my best. I mean, politics is not boring right now, I would say.
No, it's not.
You guys invited me to come on. It was about to talk about the debt ceiling vote, which is keeping it running, the government running for another 45 days. But then in the interlude, the next day, one of the Republicans in Congress, Matt Gaetz, led a group of 8, along with the Democrats, to actually get rid of the Speaker, McCarthy. And so now, yeah, it's funny. Gaetz, in his speech, he said that McCarthy had caused the chaos, but in some ways, Gaetz caused the chaos, and so it's unfortunate because the House was the one Republican held branch of government, so to speak, and now the leadership it's confusing who's going to be leading that. that Speaker of the House job. And it's unfortunate also because some important things were going on for the Republicans. A lot of hearings, and but that's all kind of interrupted right now.
So what's the strategy, Professor? I mean, does Representative Gates thinks he's going to get somebody more on the right side of the Republican Party? I don't see the Democrats supporting someone of the far right wing of the Republican Party. How does that work out?
No, I think that perhaps they could get the Republicans back together, maybe with Jim Jordan, a more conservative um, Republican in the House than McCarthy. Although McCarthy was himself pretty conservative, um, so I'm not sure what Gates's actual strategy with this is, but it is. Here we are in Texas. I mean, we've had some of these struggles over the leadership in the Texas legislature too recently with Dave Phelan, and you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot um, by pushing maybe too much for a speaker who would be a very heavy hand for the conservatives, perhaps. In terms of like the precedents for this, some people are saying it's totally unprecedented. I would say it's not totally unprecedented that we've had a kind of a revolt within a party like this, but you have to go back all the way to 1910. 1910, there was a Speaker of the House named Joe Cannon for the Republicans, and at that time it was the progressives within the Republican Party who wanted to get rid of him. And what happened was it was St. Patrick's Day, and many of the people who were the supporters of Joe Cannon were out celebrating St. Patrick's Day, I guess having a few beers or something. And when that happened, that meant that he didn't have enough supporters to maintain him as the as the uh, as the House Ways and Means chair, and so that was called the Cannon Revolt. That's the only thing I can really compare this to. But you know, hopefully it gets sorted out. You know, especially I don't understand the strategy of the Democrats with this personally, though. I
Right.
mean,
Me neither.
they got what they wanted in terms
Right.
of a not having the government shutdown, but that's only for 45 days. What are we going to do after 45 days? You know,
Yeah, and then
so,
they side with Gates, a right wing guy, to boot the guy that tried to negotiate a deal. Which, as we all know, we are a two party system. We are a bicameral form of government, and so that by definition requires some negotiation, some compromise, some conversation. I mean, what happened to the days of Ronald Reagan meeting with Tip O'Neill?
right. Yeah. In some ways, they might be shooting themselves in the foot by they might get a more conservative Speaker of the House. So, I mean, unless their strategy was just to cause turmoil, which seems like the most
Logical. Yeah.
logical thing here. You know, I mean, so they're going to say they might say a lot of Democrats right now are going to say they might say, well, the Republicans look how disorganized they are. But always keep in mind, it was the Democrats who had almost 200 votes to get rid of McCarthy. They didn't have to do that, but they did. They intentionally were trying to disrupt the
Yeah.
Republican leadership.
Now, I am going to say though that I have to admit I have been busy campaigning for my own position.
Mhm.
Um, if many people don't follow politics like we do, but I'm on the ballot this year in Houston, seeking the position of city controller. This isn't a commercial, and it's not paid for by the Orlando Sanchez campaign, but. I did catch a couple of news segments, and I saw Gates, and I saw him talk at the steps of the Capitol. But one of the things Republicans are very bad at is communicating with the American people. I think the great last communicator was Ronald Reagan. But This was an opportunity for Gates to state his case, why this revolt from a fiscal perspective, and tell people that we can't continue these stopgap measures and keep driving the national debt up, keep operating under deficits, which was the beginning of the program. I talked about that. I think that's their point, that there are some very fiscally conservative members of the House of Representatives who control the purse strings that say enough is enough. But they didn't deliver that message. Am I
That's
right or wrong?
No, that's right. I mean, the amount of debt is just it's insane. It's not feasible to continue this, and you as a comptroller would know that, and as a candidate for comptroller, and you're right that it was an opportunity for Gates to communicate that the spotlight is on him right now, and
Yeah.
use the spotlight for something good instead of using it for a personal thing. It seemed like what he communicated was just that he had personal animosity toward McCarthy, and he had some
Exactly. That's
had
exactly what came across. It was an intra-party fight that spilled over into the floor of the Congress and now into the national press scene when they missed an opportunity to talk about the real issues. But that begs the question, Professor, what is it going to take to have a real leader in this country that talks to the American people and says that we like any homeowner that overextends themselves, if as I told Andrea at the beginning of the program, if she makes $100,000 a year and every year she borrows 20,000 because she's spending 120,000, that at the end of 10 years she's going to have $1 million debt that she can't afford. So what happens? Foreclosure. They take your house away, right? They take your credit cards away. You have a bad credit rating. A whole cascading series of events from a financial perspective take place. And, we're able to sustain this crazy spending, but how do you see a leader coming forth in America and explaining to the American people our children and our grandchildren's life are going to be miserable if we don't get our arms around this fiscal spending ridiculous behavior?
Unfortunately, a lot of politicians are trying to even get us to spend like crazy in our personal finances too. I mean, so I just finally got my student loans reactivated. I got a letter in the mail. I'm finally, after all those COVID months, they're finally having me start to pay on my student loans. Yes, I'm a professor, but I still have student loans. But that's a problem. You know, it was an investment on my part to do it, and I'm going to pay them back. But at the same time, there's a lot of people in the government who are encouraging us to take out these huge loans and to not be fiscally responsible ourselves. And then that's the way they behave themselves in Washington. And so, if we do have some mature people, some adults in terms of their personal finances in Washington and the finances of the country, that they need to communicate that. And you're right.
Well, Professor, just let's wrap this. What do we expect to happen before the end of the year?
Yeah, because 45 days will be here before we know it. We'll be back to square one. And now, rather than taking care of the people's business, all of the issues facing our country, cyber attacks from Russia and from in North Korea and from Vietnam and from China, our national debt, Western Europe and the Russians invading Ukraine. I mean, there's some serious issues around the world, not the least of which is Latin America is on fire. Our own backyard, our own hemisphere is, the Chinese have had tremendous influence in many countries in Latin America, and we've got, as always, our eye off the ball with respect to Latin American policy. We've got we've got the Maduro government in Venezuela. We've got destabilization in Colombia. We got Lula in Brazil. We've got, Nicaragua is headed by socialists. We've got a massive invasion coming on the southern border. And here's Congress with an intra-party fight because somebody voted to keep the government going for 45 days. What do you see happening in the next 45 days?
Well, we need some real prudence and some real common sense, or we will default, and we will have a shutdown. That's what will happen.
I mean, there's no way around it.
No. So odds on, I'd say maybe the Astros have a better chance of winning the World Series than we have of getting the government funded.
That was a good analogy.
I think a better analogy is the Houston Texans have a better chance of making the playoffs.
Oh God, that I don't think so.
Hey, they're off to a good start. I'm proud of our head coach. I'm proud of the team. Good for Houston. Yes, there is hope.
There's
hope. And
Okay.
it's taken some rebuilding, and I think that Cal McNair has seen what Mr. Crane did with the Astros. You got to invest. I mean, this is a business, and you got to buy talent. I mean, it's like the university probably spends a heck of a lot of money hiring Dr. Wolfe because you want talent.
Absolutely.
I put in a plug for you, Dr. Wolfe.
Well, and so this is just signs of hope in different areas of our lives, and I think that eventually we'll get some signs of hope out of Washington, but not right now. Not right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know it's a big inter-party fight, and when they're not inter-party fighting, they have partisan fighting. And, there are a lot of people in America that are starting to call both the Republicans and Democrats the uniparty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, you got to be really conservative and principled and have some common sense. I don't think that Gates was exhibiting common sense or prudence with this.
I think that's the key.
I agree with
Common
that.
sense.
And listen, nobody's more fiscally conservative than I am. I have a track record of it here in this county. I'm always advocating for prudent fiscal spending on behalf of the taxpayers. But, geez, let's not go crazy.
Don't want to be a circular firing squad.
And that's what we have, both in Austin, Texas, and in Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time, Professor. Always nice of you and the university to share the talent with us, and we look forward to having you back.
You bet. So look up Joe Cannon if you've never looked him up before.
Well, is that the name of the Cannon office building in Washington, D.C., named after him?
Probably would be.
Yeah.
It's only Cannon I know of that stature. So
Yeah.
but
Well, maybe the former speaker now can have a building in Washington named after him.
Oops.
Yep.
Take care, Professor.
Take
Thank
care,
you
guys.
so much. Well, what a good show I put together.
I always put on a good show.
No, what a good show I put together.
I
with
know
the
you
guests
put it
that I
together, but I'm like the chief performer. I know
Oh,
you say I'm
God.
boring.
Oh God.
We went to dinner last night.
Yeah, and
And
he
she
and
said-
he couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep last
Yeah.
night because I said, sometimes you just give too much opinion and it gets a little
It's a
bit boring.
political program. I'm sure you people, our audience wants to hear about politics. I mean, it's, they don't want to hear about new baking sodas or recipes or muscle cars. They tune in to find out what's going on in the Latino conservative world of politics in Texas. And that's what we deliver.
I take back my comment.
All right.
Okay, Big O.
Thank you for tuning in. We rely on the generosity of Texans. Go to our webpage, Texas Latino Conservatives. You'll see. And by the way, we have a new website coming up.
I know.
It is awesome. You guys are going to have to check out our new website. But in the meantime, Mark will put that back up. And you see that tab up there that says donate. Hit that button. No donation is too small and no donation is too large. We've got to keep it up here in Texas to spread the word to our Latino population that we are conservatives. And by the way, we're launching our No Lo Sabía campaign, which is the translation of No Lo Sabía is I didn't know that. You want to tune in to programming and our sign up for our newsletter. You will be the first to see these commercials that are going to be running all over Texas. And share our website with your friends. Make a $10 donation or a $10,000 donation. But we'll see you here next week, where I'm sure our executive producer, Andrea Gomez, will put together another fascinating show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the credit. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado y nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Chao, chao.